Rain fell softly on the streets of the city, turning the cobblestones into mirrors that reflected flickering lanterns. In the heart of the town, a grand hall glimmered with golden light. Inside, the chatter of the guests was polite yet distant, like the hum of bees in a hive. Among them, Ilara, a young woman with soft brown eyes and a quiet dignity, stood nervously. She held the hand of her small daughter, Mira, whose wide eyes darted around the room in excitement and confusion. Tonight was supposed to be a new beginning, a wedding that would secure both their future and safety. Yet the moment she stepped forward, it became clear that this night would not go as planned. The groom, Lord Dorian, a man known for ambition and pride, looked at her with cool disinterest. His lips curved into a polite, almost mocking smile. "I cannot marry you," he said simply, his words cutting through the warm glow of the hall. "A single mother is not a suitable match for someone of my standing." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some lowered their eyes in discomfort. Others whispered behind their hands. Ilara's heart tightened and a chill ran down her spine. She felt as though the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. My daughter," she whispered, gripping Mira's hand a little tighter. "Please, this was all arranged to protect her." Dorian shrugged. "Your concerns do not change my decision. I refuse to marry you." Time seemed to slow. The music of the hall felt distant, like a memory from another life. Guests exchanged polite nods as if witnessing this rejection was merely entertainment. And for a moment, Ilara felt invisible, swallowed by a world that valued status over kindness. She wanted to cry. She wanted to scream. But she did neither. Instead, she took a steadying breath and lowered her gaze. For her daughter, she would remain strong. She would not let the world see her break. Then, from the shadows near the entrance, a figure stepped forward. The crowd parted almost instinctively. He was tall, with sharp features, and eyes that seemed to pierce the very soul. His presence carried a weight, an unspoken command that demanded attention. Lorenzo, the man everyone feared to whisper about, moved with quiet certainty. A Mafia boss with a reputation for both brutality and strange honor, he had long been a shadow in the city, watching from afar, taking what he wanted, and protecting only those he deemed worthy. Tonight, he had deemed her worthy. "Leave her be." Lorenzo's voice was low, but carried through the hall like a whip of authority. Every head turned to him. Even Lord Dorian's confident expression faltered under the weight of those dark, unwavering eyes. "She's mine," Lorenzo said, and the words were not a threat, they were a declaration. The hall went silent. Dorian hesitated, glancing at the watching crowd, then at the man who had entered. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Finally, he bowed his head stiffly and left, murmuring apologies that sounded empty. Ilara's knees felt weak. Mira clung to her, looking up at her mother with confusion. Who is he?" the little girl asked softly. Lorenzo's gaze softened ever so slightly. "I am someone who will keep you safe," he said, offering a hand to Ilara. "Come with me." Though she did not know this man, though a part of her trembled with uncertainty, Ilara knew she had no choice. She took his hand, feeling the firmness and security it offered. Together, they stepped into the rain-soaked streets, leaving the hall and its judgment behind. The mansion Lorenzo brought them to was unlike any place Ilara had ever seen. Tall walls of black stone rose into the night sky, flickering torches casting long shadows across the courtyard. The doors opened to reveal a warm interior, but even here, there was a sense of danger, an unspoken rule that this was a world where power decided fate. Yet, for the first time that evening, Ilara felt a flicker of safety. Mira ran ahead, eyes wide at the grand staircase and the rooms filled with luxurious furniture and quiet servants who watched from the corners with careful obedience. Lorenzo closed the doors behind them. "You are safe here," he said. His voice carried no question, no uncertainty. It was a statement of fact. No one will touch you or your daughter. Ilara looked at him, uncertainty and curiosity in her eyes. Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. Lorenzo's eyes, dark as midnight, held hers. "Because some things in this world are worth protecting," he said simply. "And you are one of them." For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Ilara wanted to ask more, to know who this man was and why he cared, but she held herself back. There was a danger in asking too many questions. Instead, she simply nodded, feeling both grateful and wary. Over the next days, life in Lorenzo's mansion was strange and overwhelming. Servants moved silently, rooms were lavish beyond imagination, and yet there was always an edge of tension. Ilara could sense it, the kind of unspoken power that made others obey without question. She felt small in this world of shadows, yet she also felt safe. Lorenzo himself was an enigma. He spoke little, but his presence was constant. Sometimes she would catch him watching her from a distance, his expression unreadable. Other times he would simply appear beside her, quietly ensuring her comfort. Mira seemed to sense his protective energy and took to him quickly, calling him Uncle Lorenzo without fear. One evening, as they walked through the mansion's garden, Ilara finally found a moment to speak. "I don't understand," she said softly. "Why me? Why now?" Lorenzo stopped and looked at her. The rain had stopped, leaving droplets that shimmered like tiny stars on the leaves. "Because you are strong," he said, his voice unusually soft. "Because you love fiercely. Because you are not afraid to stand alone. That is rare." Ilara's heart fluttered. She had never heard such words directed at her, not from anyone. And yet something in them felt like truth. She wanted to trust him, to believe that he could protect them, but the world she had lived in taught her caution. I don't know if I can belong here," she admitted. "Your world, it's dangerous." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Yes, my world is dangerous. But you have already faced danger with courage. That is why I will not let anything happen to you or your daughter." But danger was never far behind. One night, while Ilara slept in the room she now called home, Mira stirred and whispered in her sleep. Ilara's heart skipped. Outside, the night was silent, but a shadow moved along the garden wall, unseen yet unmistakable. Lorenzo was already awake. He had felt it before she did. Slipping silently from his room, he moved to the window, his expression unreadable. His hand rested on the dagger at his belt, and his mind raced with possibilities. Whoever watched them tonight was bold or desperate. By dawn, the city would be stirred by whispers of what had happened in the mansion's shadowed gardens. Ilara and Mira would remain unaware of the full threat, but Lorenzo knew the night had only begun to test them. The bond between Ilara and Lorenzo had begun, fragile but undeniable. She felt safety, curiosity, and something else, something dangerous and thrilling. And he, for the first time in years, felt a stirring of emotion he had long buried. The desire to protect someone with his whole heart, even if it meant exposing himself to danger. As the first light of morning brushed the mansion walls, Lorenzo looked toward the city, his dark eyes thoughtful. A shadow of a figure lingered on the rooftops, watching. He clenched his jaw, silent. One thing was certain. Their lives were about to change in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Ilara stirred from her sleep, unaware that outside, a storm of secrets and danger had begun. And Lorenzo, standing by the window, whispered to no one. No one will touch her. Not now, not ever. The story was only beginning. The morning sunlight fell softly through the tall windows of Lorenzo's mansion. Ilara stood near the balcony, holding Mira in her arms. The city beyond shimmered with life, unaware of the quiet storm that had passed in the shadows. Mira's small fingers clutched her mother's sleeve, and Ilara's heart tightened with both love and worry. Since the night of the wedding rejection, life had been a delicate balance. She was safe under Lorenzo's protection, yet the world she had once known still felt distant and uncertain. Every smile she shared with her daughter was shadowed by the awareness that danger lingered, even if invisible. Lorenzo appeared silently beside them, as if materializing from the morning light. His presence was commanding yet strangely comforting. Mira smiled at him, a small, trusting smile that made Ilara's chest ache with gratitude. "You worry too much," Lorenzo said softly, though his eyes scanned the streets below. "You should not carry the weight of the world alone." "I can't help it," Ilara admitted. "I have to think about Mira. I have to protect her." He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And I will help you," he said. "But you do not have to bear it alone. That is why I am here." Alara felt a warmth spread through her. There was safety in his words, yet she also sensed a quiet sadness, a shadow he carried even as he offered her protection. Days passed, and the mansion slowly became a home. Alara found small routines comforting. Mira playing in the garden, Lorenzo watching from a distance, and servants moving silently to care for them. Yet the tension never fully left. Shadows lingered at the edges of her life, subtle reminders that their peace was fragile. One afternoon, while walking through the library, Alara discovered a stack of old letters bound with ribbon. Curiosity overcame her caution. She opened the first one and began to read. The letters spoke of a past she had never known. Lorenzo had once loved deeply, yet betrayal had left scars too painful to speak of. He had lost someone important, and in the aftermath he had built a life of control, rules, and quiet vengeance. Alara felt a pang of understanding. This was the man who had chosen to protect her, even when he could have ignored her. His world was dangerous, yes, but it was also shaped by loyalty, honor, and loss. Later that evening, she found Lorenzo in the garden, staring at the darkening sky. "I read your letters," she said softly. He did not flinch, only nodded slightly. "Few see them," he admitted. "Even fewer understand." "I do," Alara said. "I may not know your pain, but I can see it, and I want to help if you let me." His eyes, usually guarded and unreadable, softened. For a moment, the hard edges of his face seemed to fade, leaving only a man who longed to be seen, understood, and trusted. "You are braver than you realize," he said quietly. But the world outside the mansion did not wait. One evening, as the city slept under a silver moon, the threat that had once lingered in the shadows became real. A group of men, silent and swift, approached the mansion with ill intent. Lorenzo sensed them immediately. His movements were precise and controlled as he positioned himself between the intruders and the women he protected. Mira, sleeping peacefully in her room, remained unaware of the danger. But Alara felt a chill of fear that settled deep in her chest. "Stay inside," Lorenzo instructed, his voice low but firm. "Trust me." Alara hesitated, then nodded, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "I trust you," she said, the words carrying more weight than she realized. The confrontation was brief, but tense. Lorenzo's presence alone was enough to halt the intruders. His reputation, combined with the quiet precision of his actions, sent a clear message. No one dared challenge him, and certainly not in his home. After the danger had passed, Alara stepped into the garden, the night air cool against her skin. She found Lorenzo standing under the moonlight, his gaze distant. "You put yourself at risk for us," she said softly. "For me, for Mira, why?" He turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Because some things are worth everything," he said. "Because you are worth everything," her heart fluttered. These words, simple yet powerful, carried a weight that neither of them fully understood. She had come into his world as a stranger, a single mother seeking safety. And now she realized that she had become something more. Someone he wanted to protect, someone he could not bear to lose. Over the following weeks, their bond deepened. They shared quiet conversations in the library, walks through the garden, and moments of laughter that seemed almost impossible in a world so dark. Lorenzo began to show parts of himself he had long hidden, small smiles, gentle touches, and the occasional teasing remark that made Alara laugh despite herself. Alara, in turn, discovered strength she had not known she possessed. She learned the ways of Lorenzo's world, navigating its dangers with intelligence and courage. She was no longer just a mother seeking protection. She was a partner, someone who could face challenges alongside him. And yet, even in these moments of closeness, shadows lingered. The rival faction that had once threatened them remained unknown but present, a reminder that peace was temporary and safety fragile. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching the stars, Mira fell asleep in Alara's arms. Lorenzo reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "You have changed things," he said quietly. "You have brought light to a world I thought was only darkness." Ilara met his gaze. "And you have given me strength," she replied. "I was afraid, but you helped me see I can face anything, as long as we are together." For a long moment they simply looked at each other, the world around them fading into the quiet hum of night. But the city was never still for long. As dawn approached, a figure cloaked in shadows moved silently along the rooftops, observing the mansion with careful calculation. The figure's intentions were unclear, but the threat was undeniable. Lorenzo sensed the presence even before it became visible. He moved to the balcony, his eyes scanning the cityscape with a mixture of determination and caution. Ilara, waking to his absence, joined him. "Another threat?" she asked softly, her hand resting lightly on his arm. He nodded. "Yes, but this time it is personal," her heart quickened. The sense of danger that had haunted them from the beginning had returned, stronger and closer than before. Yet, unlike before, she did not feel helpless. She had Lorenzo by her side, and she had learned that strength could come from more than one person. It could come from the bond they shared, from trust and from courage. "We will face it," she said firmly, meeting his gaze. Together, Lorenzo's lips curved into a rare, small smile. "Together," he agreed. As the first rays of sunlight touched the mansion walls, the city below stirred, unaware of the events about to unfold. And high above, in the shadows of the rooftops, the cloaked figure waited, patient and silent, ready to test the bond between the single mother and the Mafia boss who had claimed her as his own. Ilara and Lorenzo stood together on the balcony, the wind rustling their hair, hearts beating in unison. They did not yet know what challenges lay ahead, but one thing was certain: they would face them side by side. And in that moment, beneath the pale morning light, they found hope, courage, and a love that had grown from chaos, fear, and trust. The story was far from over. Shadows lingered, secrets waited to be revealed, and danger would strike again. But Ilara and Lorenzo had found each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next.